afternoon, everybody. Give everybody a little bit to allow their audio to connect.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Welcome this afternoon to Waking Giants X Athena Montessori. We are so grateful that you're able to be here today to this open forum from 12 to 12:45. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. Obviously, we're all grown-ups and Zoom is kind of like the thing of 2020. So we all know that please do us a huge favor and mute your mics if you're not asking a question. If you go to the participants option, you can click that. It's the two little, looks like little people. If you're old school, looks like the old school AOL icon. And so you look at that, you can click the number of participants. You should have some options on the bottom of that list of a check of yes, no, go slower, go faster, and a more. You can right click yourself or click that more, and you can do a thumbs up, thumbs down, and raise your hand if you have a question. So those are great functions to use in order to keep your mics muted, but to draw attention to yourself in order to make a statement, make a question, ask a question. Another great way to ask a question or make a statement is here in the chat box. So I am going to send you guys a hello this morning. So my preferred pronouns are she and her. And here it is in writing, just in case you guys were wondering. So if you see someone you know, you are more than welcome to chat with them. Don't worry, we are recording this session, but we don't record those private chats. So you could talk about what somebody has on, or if somebody's sleeping, or if somebody's cat makes a cameo and they'll never know. But outside of that, always hit us up on wakinggiants.me. Check out what we got going on. And boss, take it away.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Bonds. I'm going to be leading these sessions. Before I get into my shtick, I just want to kick it over to Liesl. Liesl, is there anything that you want to open with?
No, I just want to say thank you for coming and welcome. I've introduced you a couple of times over email, and probably they obviously read those emails or they wouldn't have known about today. So you've been introduced in writing, and I'm tickled. This is our first visit together. So thank you very much, Sarah and Brittany. Glad y'all are here.
All right. So
Roz, sorry, Roz.
No problem. It was Brittany last time. Honest mistake. So hi, y'all. I am Sarah Bonds, and I am one of the co-founders of Waking Giants. Waking Giants is a social impact company that's based here in Austin. The other co-founder is Martha Pinkoffs. Some of you might know her. She's a local unicorn, a native. Not a lot of those floating around. And she's just extraordinary. And we run this little ripple for good here we call Waking Giants. And our focus and our work is to make tools for people to do good. And those tools look a lot of different ways. And one of the ways that those tools looks right now is by creating community on the internet, which is where we are these days. To have conversations and exchange information about the issues of the day. And so my background, I'm an infectious disease specialist, ironically. Who knew that skill set would be needed again in my life. I founded and ran a humanitarian aid organization for 15 years that's also based here called Circle of Health International. I'm trained as a midwife. I'm married to a special needs pediatrician who practices here in Austin, Adam Rosenblum, if any of y'all have come across him. Hopefully not, because he cares for the sickest kids in the city. And we've got two little dudes, Naz and Bodie. They're 10 and 11. They are super stoked that I'm out here right now because they are playing some new game that is like underwater scuba fishing video game. Guys, the graphics are like off the hook. The CGI on this, it's like a beautiful underwater scene video game. I'm in support. So one of the things that we are doing at Waking Giants right now, because of my public health and infectious disease background and Martha's brilliance in communication and messaging, is helping folks navigate this new terrain of COVID. This particular pandemic does not freak me out or scare me, maybe because I have training and experience with infectious disease. And so that enables me, I think, to be able to provide counsel and answer questions in a way that folks right now seem to be finding useful. We're trying to bring the steady and the calm to folks who are feeling a little agitated and uprooted by this. So that's certainly one of the things I am here to try to provide for you. Another is the infectious disease piece. So if you've got questions about new science that you're hearing about, or studies that you've read, or something that you heard on the news, or your mom said this would be a great place for those questions. Before I get into the questions and the answering, I would just like to set some ground rules. We do this with every session that we lead at Waking Giants, and it really just helps us to create a container, if you will, for how we're going to be here together today and moving forward. So we have 4 key values at Waking Giants that I know are very much in keeping with Athena's. One of them is community, right? Like having these conversations in community with the people that we are in this life with just brings more joy to the experience. One is humility. I do not begin to pretend that I have every answer to the questions that are going to come up today. What I can commit to is doing my best to find you the answers if I don't have them myself. This virus is emerging. The science we know about it is emerging. And so something I might say today might be totally different 2 weeks from now if new science has come out that gives us more information. So humility, especially on this topic, I think is really important for us. Connection, right? So leading with connection rather than conviction, I think is really important in these kinds of conversations. Remembering that we are all here with good intent, and that we all have the same goal, which is to keep our kids and our community safe. And then the last one is fun. Dare I say it, fun. But I really do believe that having these kinds of conversations together is where we find joy. We find it through connection. We find it through tenderness and vulnerability and courage and success. And so I am really excited to get to spend some time with y'all this week and moving forward. So those are the ground rules that we have for holding the space and behavior when we're all together. And as Ross says, keep your pants on. We're grown-ups on Zoom. If you're going to walk around, make sure you got some pants on. But beyond that, Liesl has shared some things that keep coming up with folks that she'd like me to speak to, so I can jump into that. But I'm also just going to make sure that I keep my chat window open. And if folks have questions, you can pop them in there. So I have sort of 5 different points here that I'm going to speak to. And you can pop a question in the chat window as I'm speaking if something comes up for you, or you can hold it until I'm done. When I'm done with each section, I'll pause for questions. So the first one is how to have play dates safely. I can tell you that any activity outdoors is exponentially safer than activities indoors, which I know is kind of tough right now because it's a gajillion degrees outside. But the mornings are still relatively cool. So if that works, I'm finding that that's when I am spending time with people, is in the mornings, or of course in a body of water. And swimming pools are actually great places, not super crowded swimming pools, but swimming pools with some space in them are great places for play dates because the chlorine is actually really protective in this regard. And if folks can wear their masks when they're not in the pool, but then in the pool, they can take them off and play freely. Those are really great play dates to have right now. If you're meeting with just one other family, I think that's also a pretty safe way to go. What I would really encourage you to do when you're considering these play dates is to invite your companions in the play date into a conversation around behavior. And I think that for many Americans, this is tricky because we aren't trained in how to have intimate conversation with people about behavior without sounding judgy or feeling judgy. But it's really important that we know where people have been so that we can make decisions for our own family safety. And it doesn't have to feel prosecutorial, it can feel conversational. So an example, if you will, my family, we are in the process of negotiating some social pod contracts, because that's who we are, with some of our friends in our neighborhood, because we've just arrived at the point of the year and of this where our children need more socializing than they're getting, and we want to provide that for them, but we need it to be safe. So what that means, how that has started for us, is that I text a family and I say, you know, these are families that we know relatively well. Our children spend time together. We know the parents. You know, we are thinking about entering into some more open relationships with friends of our kids. And what that would mean is play dates with no masks, coming into each other's houses, sharing food. We would really love to have a conversation with you guys about this if you're open to it. So then I had my first conversation with one of those families yesterday. They came over, we sat in the backyard, 6 feet apart, had our masks off. The kids were around with their masks on. And we just talked about the risks that we're taking and how we define that, and do we anticipate it changing? Like, is somebody going back to work? Is somebody going back to school? Is somebody traveling? We talked about the things that we could each do to help other people feel safe, how often we would need to talk about these things. And then we didn't make a decision then. We just, you know, we are going to continue to have conversation and to think about it. It isn't, you know, the way that we are used to talking about each other. Hey, you want to meet up for a coffee at the park? Yeah, sure, no big deal. Those are not the days that we've got right now, but that doesn't mean that we can't be together. It just means there are different rules of engagement, and they require a different level of intimacy and honesty with each other. So I think play dates are absolutely possible and can be wonderful and can be restorative and get your cup full and all of those things, but they should require more rigor before you go into them. So I'm going to stop there to see if anybody has any questions about play date intimacy, navigating play dates.
Again, you guys have the freedom to unmute yourselves if you want to ask a question, or you can type it in the chat box.
Thanks, Ross. All right, if there are no questions about that, then I'm going to move on to extracurricular activities, which is the next one. And many things that I would say about extracurricular activities. So how do I feel about playgrounds? I feel good about a playground, especially in the heat that we're having right now. But let me be clear, I feel good about a playground with like your family and one other family. I don't feel great about a playground with your family and 9 other families that you don't know. And I would Purell everybody when you arrive, throughout the time at the playground, and then and again at the end. And I would keep the kids masked because they're probably going to be close to each other. But if the adults, you know, we can safely maintain our 6 feet, we can follow that rule. We can probably take our masks off, but then that might be confusing to the kids. So you'll need to navigate that. If this is a family that you have entered into one of these like very open, transparent pod relationships with, a social pod, then take your masks off and enjoy it. Enjoy the freedom. So I feel good about a playground as long as it's with a limited amount of kids. All right, so extracurricular activities. What I was saying is that I feel similarly about this as to play dates, right? Extracurricular activities outdoors are going to be way safer than indoor activities. I understand a lot of places are like rock climbing and tennis and soccer and gymnastics and all of that. They are starting back up and have lots of protocols in place. And really, I think it is, you know, don't feel funny about asking those places to know about their COVID protocols and what they are, how they are committing to keep you safe. And do that with the kid who's going to be involved with that extracurricular activity. walk them through the rules and the regulations that are being rolled out so that they can feel safe there and relax into it. I'm trying to think of like if there are indoor extracurricular activities that I would say absolutely no. Like those bouncy houses, I'd say no. I mean, even pre-COVID, those things freaked me out as a public health professional. So I would say no to those, unless again, they've got some sort of like, we're only letting in 5 families at a time. We clean it for 45 minutes in between. I imagine gymnastics places and like places that have instruction, you know, where the groups of children are organized and separate anyway, that those would be safer. And I'm sure that they have a ton of protocols in place for wiping everything down beforehand. The thing my concern there is just the community transmission, right? Like these kids are hanging out together close, they're huffing on each other, right? Because they're breathing hard, which is different than if you're just like sitting on a park bench and maybe looking opposite directions. So great for the kids, also really great for community transmission of the virus. But again, if this is like a small pot of kids who the families are following all kinds of other rules, the way I like to look at this is like you can save up your risk, right? Like you can prioritize different ways in which you want to spend your risk capital, right? So if you're staying home and you're not going out to work, or you're not eating in restaurants, you're not going to a church, you're saving all of your risk taking for school and gymnastics, then you're just going to want to be really rigorous around paying attention to those 2 lanes, right? Which means you're not hugging grandma, you know, you're not using that social capital in other places. You're taking all of that risk and you're focusing it in 2 places. You can save up for that, you know, like if gymnastics lessons are something that are really important to a kid, then maybe that's the risk your family decides to take and you turn everything else off. I think it's important to be honest about that part, right? Like abstinence is not a sustainable approach to keeping us safe during this pandemic. And so we have to identify the ways in which we need to engage, because it's good for us, it's good for our bodies, it's good for our community maybe, but then that's going to mean that there are other things we can't do because we can't do it all right now. So extracurricular activities, I think for some kids are really important. Like I was a competitive swimmer when I was from 8 to 18. And if I had to stop swimming for a year, I can't imagine how sad and depressed I would have gotten. And so what my mom and dad probably would have done in that time is like find a private pool in somebody's backyard or at a public park or something that I could be in with a coach alone. You can still do it, but it's not going to look the same, right? And so these companies that are opening up, like Westlake Gymnastics and others, I'm sure they have a gajillion things that they are doing. I would ask for very regular updates about that, and then just make your decision week to week, and be really honest with your kids about that. How maybe we've decided that you can go back to gymnastics, but like if somebody tests positive, or we decide that we're not feeling safe because we hear about some other behavior that other families are taking place in or are engaging in, you're not going to get to stay. I think calibrating the expectations is really, really important for ourselves and for our kids, right? Like just because you get to go back to gymnastics this week doesn't necessarily mean you get to next week. And just being really honest about how this is an emerging and ongoing thing. All right, so I'm going to stop there. And if there are other questions about specific extracurricular activities, perhaps, I'll speak to those.
Sarah, I just wanted to say I really liked how you put that, as you know, a school leader at Athena, but also as a parent, to kind of save up.
Yeah.
I liked how you said save up your risks, because I think part of this is like the long haul. It's like, how do we take care of our emotional, social health, which is just as important for the kids, but also how do we take care of our physical health? And so I really like how you put that. That was great. I felt like it created, it helps me figure out balance for my family, or gets me closer to it.
And I don't know if this will help, Mandy, but one of the ways that we've been talking about our kids who, as I mentioned, are little video gamer nuts, right? If you can gamify any of this, it's probably going to be more successful, right? And so as a goal-oriented, like I'm a crazy goal-oriented person. I love to work towards a goal. And I think it's kind of challenging for all of us right now to be like, okay, well, I'm staying home and I'm not getting on planes and I'm not doing these things because our goal is this, like, there is no goalpost here, right? Like, we don't know when it ends. We don't know how it ends. And so working in little micro goals for me is giving me something to look forward to. Like, I so badly need something to look forward to right now. And so now that we've decided to engage in this very like formal contract with 2 other families, I'm going to get to like actually hug somebody and have dinner inside my house with somebody besides my husband and my children. That makes me so happy, right? So it's a goal that we get to work towards. Now, it's not the goal that we will be able to maintain for the rest of our time together because things are going to change. But we have given something away. Like, we have decided to do this, and we will not be seeing my parents anymore. And we've been seeing my parents at an outdoor pool where everybody wears their masks and it's just us and my parents for 2 months. But it has become apparent that my boomer parents, which I'm sure there might be other people on this call who can relate to this, are not being so super safe. And so we've just had to decide that like what the kids need right now are other kids. And I need adults who are not my parents to have dinner with and to talk to on a Saturday night. So, you know, we're going to try this one for a little while. But it is really nice to have something to look forward to.
Sarah, you kind of just spoke to this, but we've been wondering about it, you know, as leadership. And then I've also gotten questions from parents, both inside school and who are doing private situations at home. Could you give us some language for if you suspect that somebody is not honoring the commitment, you know, either through something they've said or behavior or something that somebody else has said or seen? Could you just help us with language with that?
Sure. Well, I think first the important thing is with ourselves is to get clear about what are we concerned about? Like, are we concerned that this person is putting ourselves in danger? Are we concerned that they're not telling us a whole truth, or maybe their definition of not taking risk is different than our definition? So I think the place to start is that, like, why am I getting all ruffled about this? Am I bummed that I wasn't invited to the barbecue, even if I wouldn't have gone? Like, is that why I'm mad? Like, me, FOMO lady over here, that would totally be what would make me mad first. And then I would have to get through that and be like, oh, actually, I'm upset because you maybe put my family at risk. Now, if we lead with that, like if somebody just called you up and was like, hey, I hear you went to this thing, that's a bummer because like now you put my family at risk, you probably not are going to respond to that from a place of like grounded, centered reciprocity, right? So first, why are you pissed or upset or offended? Second, is it possible that they simply have a different definition because we have not had a clarifying conversation about what I thought we were in here together, right? So imagine all of us at some point thought we were dating somebody who didn't think they were dating us, right? Maybe, does that resonate once upon a time? Maybe even now? So it's similar, right? You're like, well, I mean, we were making out on Friday. Like, you called me Saturday. We're going out, and then you're like, you hear they're out with someone else. You're like, wait, how did I get that wrong? So, like, we should all have been trained to do in that moment, right? Like, why is this really upsetting me? What do I need to say to this person? How is this person? What is the way that I can say this so that they are actually going to hear the message I am trying to deliver? And then you craft your message, right? So, okay, this family, I find out they did something with another family. I thought we were just doing this. The way that I would then handle that is I would call, I would not text. I would even maybe ask if we could meet for coffee in a backyard or something so that you can have it as face-to-face as possible. And then just say, I know this is going to feel really like formal or, you know, and that's not what I'm intending, but I think it is really important that we all have the same understanding of our behavior in this strange and wonky time, you know. And so I was under the impression that we were not hanging out with other people because we are taking this level of risk together. How about you? I'm curious to hear how you, like, could you describe the parameters of our behavior together? Or I heard you did this thing. Wow. A friend of mine did this recently and I called him and I was like, that was so off brand. Like, I can't believe, like, tell me more about that decision. And he was like, girl, we are just struggling over here. Like, we are losing it. The kids are fighting. It absolutely is not a decision I would have made a month ago, but I've made the decision now for like the mental health and the emotional stability of my family. And I was like, I got you. I see you. I support you. And I can't hang out with you anymore. But like, absolutely, let's Zoom and talk on the phone. Like, we as women specifically, we are trained to keep other people happy and to keep other people comfortable. And so one of the real gifts of this pandemic in our own personal development is learning how to have conversations about boundaries with people. And for lots of us, it's uncomfortable. It's new. We don't feel steady in it. I have yet to have this conversation with anyone and not have it go well, for what it's worth. Every single time I have endeavored into this conversation with somebody, the exception of my boomer parents, it goes very well. So I offer you that. I think you will be surprised, and maybe and you will sense some relief in the person that you are inviting into this conversation. They want to have this conversation too. They just don't know how. All right, my advice for this combo specific to extended family. Many people are probably trying to figure out Thanksgiving plans. Totally. I started thinking about this weekend also. So I hate to break it to you guys, but it is my job. And so I'm gonna be the truth teller here. The way that you are living your life right now is absolutely the way you will be living your life in November. Probably even next spring break and possibly even next summer vacation. I know. I'm just gonna let that, I think the few of you I can see are like, oh my God. Okay, so I'm just gonna, sorry guys, my phone sometimes rings when I'm in a Zoom. Super cool. Sorry, I'm back. All right, well, that was my moment to let that land with y'all. So regarding holiday travel, I wouldn't do it. But this is a really great opportunity to do this saving up of your risk, right? If like Thanksgiving is really important to you, or Christmas or Halloween or whatever it is, save up your risk and use it then, you know, and be in communication with whoever it is you want to spend that holiday with around how you can all do that safely. If you can avoid getting on a plane, I would really encourage you to do that. I know that, you know, long road trips are not everybody's favorite, but it is safer. And especially in November and December, when we are also in flu season, we'll be safer. And because we have lots of time to plan for it, right? So those holidays don't necessarily need to be times that you're by yourself, but you will have to put in a lot more heavy lift around conversing and preparation in behavior. Meg, does that help?
Yes, sorry, it does. Yeah, I mean, just to elaborate, I mean, in talking about the language, I mean, if I had it my way, I would ask my parents and siblings to full on quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, however, their children are also in school.
Yeah.
And I also want to be cognizant of us all then going back to Athena. You know, I mean, what is the guidance there? I mean, I've also considered, you know what, we're going to have to skip this year, friends. Like, we're just going to have to do maybe a Friendsgiving in the backyard with people that we've potted up with and so forth, which is a trade-off, but, you know, I want to be realistic.
Yeah, I think that I mean, one of the things we keep saying to ourselves, my husband and I, my husband's turning 40 this year. He is like a deep, deep devotee of this certain band called Fish that many of you might know. So now you know exactly who I'm married to. So he had all of these, I was like, go see as many shows as you want this year. Like, he doesn't want a party. He just wanted to like go see his band with his friends. And he had all of these trips planned. And obviously none of that has happened. And he's so sad, right? And yet I have seen him come around the full circle to next year, or when it comes back, I will appreciate it even more, right? Like, I know that it's coming. I know that it's not, Trey Anastasio didn't die, God willing. I shouldn't even probably say that out loud. He's the lead singer of the band, for anybody who doesn't know. You know, it's the band isn't gone, right? Like, you just can't get on a plane and go hang out with lots of people right now. Those days will be back. So what he has learned, like taken full advantage of since then, is now every Tuesday night they drop some kind of terrible live show that I don't watch with him. But now on Tuesday nights, him and all his buddies, they get on a Zoom and they watch a Fish show together. That's not something that ever would have happened before. You know, everybody was real busy. We had things to do. So I say that in response to that, like, maybe you have a Friendsgiving in your backyard. You know, for the first time, maybe you just are with your chosen family or with other people. Or, you know, maybe you save up your risk and you use it then. But I think that thinking about it now is not too early at all. When is a good time to get flu shots? As soon as you can. As soon as you can. I am a big advocate of flu shots. Again, that's another one of these things you don't do for yourself. You know, you do it for all of the people in your community who are at risk, who can't get them. Regarding boomer parents, happy family language, it does work. Well, they seem to really be responsive to like the email with no subject heading with just a line to a random article in it. That was a joke. I don't know if anybody else has parents who send emails like that to me. You know what, honestly, what does work is my kids talking to them about it. So, you know, my kids are around my husband and I all the time. We talk about health and medicine and science at the dinner table every day. And so recently we were at this pool gathering with my parents, and my mom's one of those boomer wearers who wears her mask on her chin. You know, like she shows up with it on her face, but as you hang out, it gets like further and further down her face, and you're just like, what? And so my 11-year-old masked was like, hey, Nana, you know, that's like wearing your underwear with your private parts out, right? And she was like, okay, and put it up, right? But like if I had said that, woo, there would have been a fight. So I would say invite your children into that. I mean, my children were also the ones saying like, Nana, we want to sleep at your house. We want to hang out with you. But if you keep going to the gym every day, we're not going to get to do that. So stop doing that, you know? So again, like we're all taking risks. We just have to be thoughtful and intentional about the ones that really matter to us. And I think it bums my kids out a little bit that Nana cares more about going to the gym than she does about hanging out with her grandchildren, right? But I think empowering our children to have conversations about boundaries and risk and expected behaviors is also an incredible opportunity that we're being given in this wild pandemic time. All right, so I'm going to keep moving through because we got 10 minutes left. So birthday parties is kind of the same as the other three or the other two that we talked about, extracurricular and play dates. You know, if that's something that's really important, you could invite people to quarantine so that you can have a real birthday party, you know, and be really clear about what quarantine means. Or hang outside. And we had a water gun party, another one of these things that like I never would have done pre-COVID. There were no guns, toy guns of any kind in my house, but now my children play video games all day and we have an arsenal of water guns. So there you go. But water guns are great because they don't actually want to get close to each other, right? The goal is to stay far away while they're still playing. So finding activities like that where kids aren't running at each other, you know, they're like together but they're apart, are really great for birthday parties. And that was successful. The grown-ups came, everybody wore a mask, everybody brought their own beverages. We brought popsicles, you know, that come in their own contained thing. So there was, you know, there was nothing cooked in our house per se. And that worked really well, besides the fact that it was a gajillion degrees outside. But I think that, you know, an outside birthday party where the rules are clearly laid out beforehand and expectations, and with some kind of activity that keeps kids engaged but not like up in each other's faces, I think is great. All right, kids wearing masks is on here, and Liesl and I have been talking about this, and you know, the science is coming in more and more that kids are in fact contracting and moving the virus around. We don't know at what rate yet. Kids can totally wear masks. Kids all over Asia do it every day. It's a culture change piece, and it's about behavior, right? And I know that you guys have your own set of rules and regulations that you're rolling out around that, so I won't speak to it any more specifically than that, unless there are some specific questions around it. Have you observed that children find masks more comfortable or normal the more people wear them? I mean, honestly, part of our job as grown-ups in modeling behavior for our kids around this is twofold. One, to demystify this. You know, it's not a mystery, the virus. It's science, and it moves in a very specific, predictable way. It's not wild and unpredictable. So demystifying it and normalizing the behaviors that we are all now living. The kids, especially the little ones like y'all have, they don't know any different, right? So when we just say, okay, this is the thing that happens now, in my experience, they're like, oh, okay, this is what it is to be in pre-K. This is what it is to do this thing today. And they don't really buck much about it, especially kids. I had kids who loved costumes. So turning the mask into part of a costume might also be a really useful way to play with it. Is it possible to flip mask wearing from being an out of date to a standard no big deal operation? Yeah, I think it absolutely is. And as you know, I alluded to earlier, we have a long way to go in this. And so one of the things we've done recently is we've really personalized our masks. So everybody in the family got to pick a theme, and they got to order masks according to that theme. And we have 4 hooks. There are 4 of us that hang by the door. And then there's a bowl underneath. Masks get worn one time, and then they go into the bowl. And everybody has a hook. And so we all have, like, my 10-year-old loves cats. So all his masks have cats all over them. The husband, any guess? Fish. His masks are all fish. The 11-year-old loves Star Wars. So we got him some really cool ones like Too Close You Are that has Yoda on it, and like some fun ones like that. And then I'm like an 80s pop music freak show. So I had like Queen and Madonna, and those are our masks. You wear them once, you put it in the bowl, you wash them, you hang them back up. And now we don't even have to say it anymore. Everybody just takes their mask on the way out. We also have one at each seat in the car. Hand sanitizer everywhere. You know, we're just normalizing it. And I think the more that a year from now, we're going to look back at this and be like, remember when masks were a big deal? Because everybody's just going to have gotten so used to it. All right. So the last one is about communication. And, you know, we've talked a fair amount about that here and transparency, and that's just going to be something that we're going to talk about a lot, because we're going to have to keep navigating that in different ways with different people in our lives. One of the things I think it's really important for y'all, for people who are sending their kids to school, to think about, I don't say this to terrify anybody by any means, but I do want to make it clear that like the plan that you guys are rolling with today will shift, right? It will shift as we learn more about science. It will shift based on all sorts of things. And so just to keep that in your heart and in your mind as you start your school year, right? Like, it isn't just that we're starting school and it's the first day of school and from here out it's all going to be smooth sailing. Like, all of the time as we move through this process together, and process I mean like navigating a pandemic while interacting in the world in a safe way, we have to we have to change our behaviors according to life as it presents itself. So what do I mean by that? This friend who, go back to the example of how, so we have these two sons, each one of them got to pick one friend that they played with this summer. And we were in this like very close relationship with their families, right? About how's it going? Anybody been exposed, etc. So when this one family decided on a whim to send their kid to sleepaway camp, we were like, whoa, seems like such a crazy decision for you to make based on the level of risk you were taking before, right? So we then had to change the ways that we interacted with each other based on risk and exposure. No lack of love, right? Like we love them so much. The kids still see each other all the time on Zoom and are calling each other and sit in the yard 6 feet apart with their masks on and play. But that closer level of intimacy has changed. So what I really want to I will revisit this often with you guys, is that the reality that we are living today, we cannot assume will be the reality we're living in a month. It will change. The vaccine is it's a long ways away. And even when it is here, we don't know how it's going to be distributed. Is it going to be like a booster that you have to get every 3 months? How much of it will be made? How quickly do we get access to it? So I really want to applaud Liesl and the staff of your school for making the call, right? Like, I feel like part of our broader challenge that we are all in together right now is that when COVID arrived in America in the spring, we were sold something other than what we got, in the sense that we were told from leadership, from federal to state, we got this, it's not a big deal, don't worry about it, go about your business, right? Well, that didn't pan out, not the case. Then everybody go home, stay home, don't go out. That's not really sustainable either. So we have to find our way to this middle path, right? Where we get to be together safely in close, safe communication as things change, moving through this, because we don't know how it ends or when it ends. And, we gotta make ourselves, we have to make the life that we want for ourselves available as much as we can. And I think that for the folks like Liesl in the world making the call, that's tough and it's scary. And I just want to, give you guys credit for all of the work that you have done and are going to continue to do to show up for your families, to keep people safe, really centering them and their kids in this process, and trusting. Like, there's so much trust involved in this. And I really just am so honored to be a part of that ecosystem now. And so we are at the end of our time. And I just want to let you all know that you can find me on the internet all of the time at Waking Giants. You can message us socially. You can shoot me an email if stuff comes up. I will be here with you every week to help navigate this with all the year between now and next Thursday to see what transpires. And I want these to be useful for you, so please don't be shy about sharing the questions or the concerns that you have, because that's what we're here to do, is to hold space and speak to those. Liesl, do you want to say anything in closing?
Well, I was thinking, Mandy, Heather, Joy, why don't we give some thought to maybe creating some sort of a shared doc or some way that we can track parent questions and concerns week to week, so that we can give that to you in advance. Because today you did a beautiful job of kind of taking all the information that we gave to you this past week and then presenting it in a very concise, helpful way. So I think it will be helpful if we can do that, and moving forward, if we're taking people's questions and concerns, we're able to feed that to you in advance, so that we can really use this 45 minutes in an efficient, effective way like we did today. So we'll give some thought to that. I think in the meantime, families, if you could just send us an email to me or Mandy or whoever your favorite contact person is, and we'll consolidate it for now until we can come up with a better system.
Yeah, we'll work on a Google form that we can send out. So we'll work on getting that out by the beginning of next week.
Sarah, this one question from Jennifer Wenzel. Can we just end on this? Is it possible to consider our classroom part of our bubble, since everyone should be taking the precautions we've already discussed?
Yeah, I mean, that is up to you guys to decide. You know, it's like the image that I hold in my mind when considering these pods, for lack of a better term, is like the overlapping concentric circles, right, that you have. And so I think the more, if you feel safe with this group of parents and you feel like everybody, like this is where everybody is spending all of their risk capital, then yes, I think that is fine. My concern is that is a tough thing to navigate with lots of families. You know, like family has to get
inside or outside. Are you talking about at school or outside of school?
I think the question was speaking to the classroom, right? Consider our classroom part of our bubble. Oh, you mean like, can I just hang out with these people without a mask? I mean,
Jennifer, do you want to clarify?
Yeah, no, I was talking about in relation to like the kids wearing masks at school, because just in the possibility of thinking about it as like that's part of their bubble, and like they would wear masks if they go out to other places, but the school is like part of the safe place that they have agreed, you know.
Yeah, Sarah, since we're out of time, I'd love to do a little more of that next week, but I think the short answer is that that's why we keep, you know, reiterating the community commitment, because if everybody is following and adhering to the community commitment, and if we are treating each classroom community as its own bubble, then that is certainly our goal. So I'd love to explore that a little more deeply next week, if we could. Thank you for that, Jennifer. All right, Sarah, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
So nice to see so many humans.
All righty. Thank you guys so much for coming. Lisa, we do have this session recorded, so if you'd like that. And again, check us out, wakinggiants.me. We're not just here to help you get through COVID, folks. We got all kinds of other goodies too. So take care of yourselves and each other. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Take care.